everyone, and welcome. I'm Hilary Woodhead. I'm the CEO of NAPA, the National Activity Providers Association, and I'm delighted you're joining us during Global Intergenerational Week for this special live broadcast. Before we begin, let me highlight two exciting ways we are celebrating Global Intergenerational Week here at NAPA. Firstly, we are excited to launch our new NAPA Toolkit celebrating intergenerational activities. This practical resource has been developed to support activity providers in planning and delivering intergenerational experiences that are intentional, inclusive, and meaningful. It includes practical guidance, top tips, and adaptable activity ideas drawn from real experience. Thank you to everybody who shared their experiences and have been included in this toolkit. Alongside that, we're running our Global Intergenerational Week competition for 2026, which celebrates the amazing intergenerational work happening across care settings. We invite you to share your creative approaches for a chance to win a place at the NAPA conference in 2027 and receive sector-wide recognition, a Certificate of Excellence. Both the toolkit and the competition are about celebrating and encouraging great intergenerational activities, and they sit beautifully alongside today's focus. Today, we would like to share findings from our national survey on intergenerational activities in care homes, undertaken in partnership with colleagues from the University of Chichester and the University of Hertfordshire. This conversation is about exploring what we found through the survey, what the evidence tells us, what is already happening in practice, and what we can learn from it. At NAPA, we know that bringing generations together can be transformational. It can enrich lives, strengthen communities, and support well-being. This survey has helped us to better understand where intergenerational work is thriving, what challenges remain, and importantly, what support the sector needs next. Later on, I'll also share some exciting news about a new piece of co-produced work that builds on what we've learned through this research, but we'll come to that a bit later. I'm joined today by three wonderful guests, I hope they'll come up and join me now, who have helped shape this wonderful work. Dr. Sandra Lyndon from the University of Chichester, Professor Denise Turner from the University of Hertfordshire, and our very own Anqa Tirmazee-Kaleem, NAPA's Research and Impact Officer. Thank you all very much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, thank you very much.
Lovely to see you all. So I'm going to dive straight in with you, Sandra. We've got a question here for you. Could you explain why intergenerational activities are such an important area to explore in care homes today?
Hilary, thank you. And that's a great question. So firstly, as we get older, loneliness and social isolation can become a key issue for many people. And research by Age UK reported that those living in care homes experience more loneliness than those in the community. And this sadly can cause all sorts of problems, including poor mental health, physical health, as well as a shorter lifespan. Intergenerational activities, intergenerational practice is all about bringing children and young people together with those living in care homes to create positive connections through shared activities. What we knew before we started the research, that it can be an effective way of addressing loneliness and social isolation, as well as having many other benefits. But we need more research. And the second reason was that during COVID-19, our care homes were closed. So the children, the young people couldn't go and visit. Since then, there's been a renewed interest in intergenerational activities and the importance of connection. So as you said, Hilary, we wanted to find out, what's happening, what works, and how it works. And that's really important.
Thank you. And I think that's a really helpful reminder that this is about relationships, not just about activities. So thank you for that. You're absolutely bang on. And I wonder whether Denise has anything to add to that, particularly around kind of why we did the survey. What was the aim of it really, and what were we hoping to learn from care homes across the country, because they're the ones doing the work.
Exactly. I think, thanks, Hilary. Just building on what Sandra said, we know from all sorts of sources that intergenerational practice has huge benefits for everyone. but we wanted to look at specific questions around what intergenerational practice is taking place. Sometimes we know about these things anecdotally. So as Sandra said, we need the research on that. So that was one of the questions that we asked, what are you actually doing? What sort of activities? And then we wanted to know what the benefits were. We know that, as we said, kind of anecdotally and from different sources, but there's always room for more research. And we also wanted to know what the challenges are as well. So those were our key research questions.
Thank you. And Anqa, you were involved in conducting the literature review that underpinned the research. Can you just tell us a bit about what you found, what existing kind of research says about intergenerational activities and why they matter?
Thank you, Hilary. I think it was a very interesting project to work on. So while I was actually doing the literature review, what I found out was that much of the work on intergenerational programs, it actually represents a very valuable approach to enhancing connection, learning, and mutual understanding across various age groups, particularly Sandra and Denise both have mentioned, within the care homes and the community settings. From a policy and a wider practice perspective, these initiatives, they offer a very significant potential, and they are able to deliver multi-stakeholder benefits at various levels, such as enhancing the well-being of the older adults or enriching children's learning and their emotional development, or if we look at it from a professional and emotional rewards for practitioners aspect as well. But we also have to keep in mind that the research which is actually done within this field, because I have done the literature review in that as well, it is mostly qualitative in nature. There is a variation in structure and in duration as well. However, there are two common underlying objectives that I sort of found out. One was to facilitate meaningful encounters between generations through shared activities such as play, art, dancing, music, storytelling, etc. And the other one was to enable both children and older adults to interact socially, they exchange their experiences, and they develop a mutual understanding as well. So overall, this actually suggests that, and I think the message is generally given to policymakers, that they should not view intergenerational practice or these programs just as an optional enrichment activity, which I think more than Hilary, who would honestly understand. It is important to look more at it as a core component of sustainable community that strengthens intergenerational solidarity. So it's the literature has been quite interesting, but there are sort of gaps as well, which of course I think I will be discussing them later.
Thank you, Anqa. It's, I could just listen to you talk about your literature reviews all day. You just we've got it's amazing to hear all of the research that is out there, really. And I think sometimes we think we're starting from a blank canvas, but we're really not. There is some incredible research out there that we're drawing on here. So thank you for that. So Sandra, looking at the survey results, any surprises, any findings that emerged that were particularly interesting or unusual?
I picked three things, Hilary. So first of all, one of the most important findings, I think, which we'll probably talk more about, is the emotional impact. So certainly lots about how, for the people working in the care homes, how this was, they could see it was reducing loneliness and strong connections. But I think what was surprising was actually intergenerational activities are fun. So there's lots of comments about fun, about laughter, and how this is a really important element for both children and for people living in care homes. And I've got a little quote, I couldn't resist. The feeling of joy on the shift it's amazing being around the children. The home is happy and people are engaged and content. Secondly, I think, as Anqa was saying, there was a wide range of intergenerational activities which were happening. So some of the ones that you would expect, such as music and reading and storytelling, craft activities, but also playing games. There was gardening, reminiscing, dance performances, sports. But one of the surprising things that we were wondering about is with the development in digital technologies, would there be more digital activities? And there's a little bit of that going on, but maybe not as much as we thought there might be. So maybe that's an area we can develop. And last but not least, I think one of the surprising things was actually for 73% of our respondents, they hadn't received any formal training in intergenerational practice. And there was a real thirst for actually wanting to develop this work and to moving to, you know, how do we make this maybe a little bit more meaningful or a bit more personalised?
Lovely. I like the three things. I do like three things. I like things in threes.
It's a nice
one. That's lovely. Thank you. And Denise, in terms of kind of the impact that intergenerational activities have, anything there in the survey about, it's hard to capture impact in a survey, isn't it? But anything particular that you noticed in terms of the impact on wellbeing and engagement for residents living in care homes?
Yeah, I think Sandra's covered some of it actually. The when we were doing the analysis, the word that kept coming up was joy. And it was really interesting because it's not necessarily a word that you hear a lot these days, you know. And, you know, obviously people didn't know what other people had put. So, you know, in their answers. And this word kept coming up again and again. So this notion of joy across everybody, across the children involved, the activity providers and, you know, the people that were in the homes. So that was something that really struck us, I think, Sandra, didn't it? The joy aspect.
Definitely.
And then people talked about helping the children grow emotionally. That, you know, particularly those children who might not have grandparents or have very limited contact with older people, actually kind of meeting older people in care homes was really positive for them. And some people talked about particularly younger children might have some fears around older people. And it really helped with that kind of sense of emotional growth. Then for the residents, I think very, very similar kind of benefits. This notion of joy, again, fun, really helping with things that Sandra's talked about, the social isolation and the loneliness. And also seeing different, you know, just the very obvious reason, seeing a different age group, you know, actually having a sense of community rather than perhaps feeling a bit separate. And those things also seem to be true for the staff. A lot of the staff talked about joy again coming up, you know, and that somehow somebody said that it helped them to see the residents as people again and not just, you know, people that they were kind of working with in these settings. So very
powerful stuff, actually.
Yeah, really powerful, quite emotional, actually, reading.
Yeah, thank you. So obviously we've heard about a little bit about the survey results, Anqa, but anything particularly in the literature that you reviewed about the benefits, you know, the benefits that other researchers in the field have identified for both older adults and kind of younger participants? Anything that you noticed there?
Well, you just mentioned that you like three things, but I think in terms of intergenerational programs, for care home residents and both for the younger adults, the benefits they are generally reaped at four levels. It has a positive effect on the psychological, cognitive, physical, and the social well-being. I will try, of course, I'm mindful of the time, but I'll try and quickly touch upon all four of them. So psychologically, the literature, it emphasizes that regular interaction within the children, younger adults, and you know, with the care home residents, it can reduce elements of loneliness, social isolation, and tends to have a positive effect on moods, and in actually enhances, you know, like sense of purpose and their self-worth as well. Cognitively, if we look at it, these activities such as storytelling, games, or collaborative projects, they provide a mental stimulation. They encourage creativity, support memory, and also enhance, you know, problem-solving skills. There are numerous physical benefits as well, which includes increased mobility, strength, coordination, and particularly when these activities they involve movement, exercise, or fine motor tasks as well. In terms of social benefits, residents, of course, they are able to build meaningful relationships with younger adults, which we are always, sort of looking at as well. But it also has a positive effect in the relationship that they build with staff and peers, which Denise was just, sort of mentioning. Overall, the environment, it tends to become, sort of a better. So collectively, these outcomes, if we look at it, they contribute to a more stimulating, supporting, and purposeful environment where it is actually able to enhance the overall quality of life of the care home residents. Um, However, intergenerational scholars they have increasingly critiqued the current state of knowledge in the field as well. It is often viewed, sometimes limited in quality due to small sample sizes or short intervention periods. But overall, the benefits they tend to outweigh the limitations. So yes, I think the best that they have actually given it to the psychological benefits that can be reaped with the interaction between these two different generations.
Yeah. And I think what's so lovely is we see that, don't we? We see examples of that, but it is sometimes really hard to kind of measure it. When we see our, the NAPA members across the UK sharing these lovely moments, and that it's so hard to kind of measure moments, but the difference it makes to somebody's mood, or the fact that Elsie walked to the door to say goodbye to the children, or waved goodbye when she hadn't lifted her arm, or all those little things that actually that you're talking about are just the things about people had a positive experience. But actually, when you break it down into those individual benefits, it shows, doesn't it, just how important it is that this becomes a really, really central part of activity and care provision, really. So thank you for that. You also started to talk a little bit about some of the barriers, some of the challenges. So Denise, in the survey, was there anything that kind of backed up that in terms of the challenges and some of the barriers that care homes reported in terms of developing intergenerational programs?
Yeah, I mean, there was, I think Anqa touched on it really well, mostly the sort of things that you would expect, actually. So lots of people talked about time pressures, there wasn't the time, also the staffing resources, so quite often intergenerational practice was perhaps done, it wasn't kind of sustained, it was done a little bit ad hoc, perhaps, by staff who had a particular passion about it. And staff said that they'd like more consistency, more overarching standards, because insufficient training as well underpinned that. It was something that came up a lot.
Yeah.
So broadly, yes, training, time and staffing.
Yeah. So no surprises on that one, I would say, compared to some of the surprises that Sandra had. And I think that's a similar theme that we hear, don't we, around any kind of activity provision, really, that there's some of the challenges that we hear a lot at NAPA. Sandra, based on these survey results, anything that really stood out in terms of an approach or a model, a way of working that you thought, wow, that's worth noting? Anything that stood out for you in terms of the models or approaches used?
Thank you, Hilary. There wasn't anything in a particular approach or model, and I think that's the beauty of intergenerational activities or practice, is that you can develop it how, what works for you in your particular setting. But there were key things which really seemed to facilitate, or when they weren't there, as Denise was saying, created barriers. So just to echo the importance of training and support, having a positive attitude was really important, so that everybody's on board with intergenerational connections, and again, time to organise. And also a real sort of thirst for moving beyond maybe sort of performing activities to something which is maybe a little bit more meaningful or connected. And people want to, really keen to, find out how can we make this better, which was lovely.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting, isn't it, when we think about, you know, models and approaches, and often we want a theory behind it. But actually, I remember a good friend of ours, Sue Eggersdorf at Ready Generation, she said, actually put younger and older people together and they'll make it happen, you know, and just see what happens. And I think, you know, that's a really lovely way to start, is actually let's just see what happens. As long as everybody's safe, let's see where this takes us. And I think that, you know, that's you know, we do like a theory or an approach or a model of best practice, but there's lots of wonderful examples of good practice out there. But actually, if you haven't met Joan or Terry yet, you don't know what's going to happen when they meet each other, do you? So that's lovely. Thank you for that. And gaps in the research, Anqa. So you're our in-house researcher. So I know you're always looking at opportunities for further research. Any gaps in the research that the survey kind of helped to address for you?
Yeah, before getting into the gaps, I think the good thing is that the projects, they are actually gaining a lot of popularity and widespread recognition for their potential benefits. But like you have mentioned as well, there remains a notable absence of rigorous academic research, as they put it, on specific programs. So the people who have actually done research in the field, they think that much of the existing literature, it tends to be largely descriptive. It focuses on anecdotal or observational accounts rather than empirical evaluation. So consequently, what is happening is that many studies that were done before, it was unanimously, you know, sort of reviewed that they can lack clear, measurable outcomes or comparative analysis, making it difficult to, you know, sort of assess the effectiveness and sustainability of different models, as you were mentioning, of intergenerational practice. But this gap actually highlights the need for further systematic and analytical research to deepen the understanding of how these programs or these models are trying to be being implemented into the field as well. What factors that they are contributing to, what is the level of success which is there, and then how they can effectively be integrated into long-term care homes, or, you know, sort of community settings as well. So quickly, if I summarize that, the future research, it needs to focus not just on the cause and the effect relationship of the intergenerational programs, the factors which are there, but it is reviewed, and it has been suggested as well that it is also important to study the dynamics between the variables also. So that can be, you know, sort of very helpful for future research.
Thank you, Anqa. Wonderful. So I think we're on our last question. I'm going to put it to you, Denise, if that's okay. So kind of looking ahead, what do you think needs to happen to support more care homes to develop meaningful intergenerational activities?
I think drawing from what people said in the survey, the key thing was that it needs, and people have touched on this today, it needs to be seen as a core activity so that it's actually embedded and not seen as kind of optional or add-on. And that means having some kind of overarching standards potentially, and also that training really helps to strengthen the quality of provision. So that was the kind of message that we got from the survey.
Brilliant. And it's been just a delight working on this programme. I've just really enjoyed it. Thank you all very much for all your hard work and energy and effort, because I think, you know, with anything, when we set out on this, we've been talking about this for a couple of years, so it was lovely when we finally were able to launch the survey with Anqa's help with the research, literature review, and just really get a sense, really, and it is a sense of how things are in care homes when it comes to intergenerational activity, what the challenges are, but also that joy. I think that you just summed it up in the word joy. It's just wonderful. So we do have a big announcement to make, which we're very, very excited about. I'm absolutely delighted to share some really exciting news. In 2026 and 2027, NAPA will be leading a new national programme to develop intergenerational engagement standards for care homes. We're really, really very, very grateful, very much appreciate the support of Hallmark Foundation, who have enabled us to spend much more time co-producing some intergenerational standards of practice. Now, these will sit alongside the national activity standards of practice, but they will be informed absolutely by those people on the ground that are involved in and often lead on intergenerational activity in care homes. So we will be, you know, what we've heard from the survey, obviously, is that there's a lot of enthusiasm, huge amount of enthusiasm for intergenerational work, that we're willing. I think the sector is willing, care homes are willing, activity providers are willing, but they want to know how to do that as well as they possibly can. And I think having some standards that are very practice-based, you know, the things to consider, how to adapt intergenerational activity in different settings to different individuals' needs, etc., is definitely something to look forward to. So our aim is to co-produce national intergenerational standards of practice for care homes that provide clear, practical guidance for the sector. So these standards will help build confidence for care providers, support safe, inclusive and meaningful practice, sit alongside the NAPA standards of practice and quality indicators for activity provision and activity providers, and strengthen how we evidence quality in activity provision. The programme is going to be shaped through collaboration, so we will continue to work closely with Denise and Sandra, the University of Chichester and the University of Hertfordshire, so the work is grounded in research and supported by strong academic input. And we will also be working with people who live in care homes, people who work in care homes, people who visit care homes, their families and friends, younger people, and of course the sector experts, of which we have many across this fantastic social care sector that are leading on and have the expertise, particularly around intergenerational practice. We'll be testing and refining the standards in practice with care homes, ensuring that they're realistic, they're proportionate, and they're genuinely helpful. And alongside these standards, we'll develop some practical tools, some resources, and some learning opportunities. Training was a big theme, so services feel confident in putting into practice those standards. Everything we produce will be shared openly through NAPA's network, so as many services can benefit as possible. The programme is about supporting a kind of shift, really, from, you know, where intergenerational activity engagement is recognised as a quality core part of relational care, as Denise was saying. We're so pleased to be doing this alongside Hallmark Foundation. I do want to just read out a message of support from their chair, Avnish Goyal, CBE. Avnish has said, intergenerational engagement has the power to transform lives, not only for older people living in care, but for younger generations and communities as a whole. We are proud to support this project with NAPA and look forward to seeing its impact across the care sector and beyond. So thank you very, very much to Avnish and to the Hallmark Foundation for their support. We're really keen to involve as many voices as possible in this work. So if you'd like to help shape the standards, take part in testing, find out more, we'd love to hear from you. Please get in touch with Anqa. She'll be very happy to hear from you. She'll be leading on the project from our side. So please get in touch with her. Please drop her a note. And if you're not really sure how you might be involved, but you'd like to know more, please drop us a note, because that's what we want to hear from everybody who has an interest in this area of work. It's clear to us that these survey findings show the passion is there in the sector, and we hope this programme can help turn that passion into a shared, supported and sustainable approach. I'd like to thank Sandra, Denise and Anqa for their insight and partnership. Once again, much thanks to Hallmark Foundation for supporting this work. And thank you to everyone watching today. So practitioners, partners, family members, supporters, all of you for making this connection possible. A little reminder, please do download the Intergenerational Activities Toolkit. Please take part in our Global Intergenerational Week competition. Also, to find out more about all the amazing things that are going on across the world. There's so much happening this week. We're on day 4. There's lots happened already, but you can head over to the Gen All website. That's gen-all.co.uk. They've got information, guides, resources, research papers. There is so much. It's a really incredible repository of information. Please tag us in your social media posts. Please use the official hashtag #GIW26. We are out of time. Thank you all very, very much for being here. We'll see you all really, really soon. Enjoy the rest of Global Intergenerational Week. Bye for now. Bye-bye.